Well, I've been rambling on for a while. I just realized I had no audio. I was not looking at the live chat for once. I had a lot to say, and I was talking about. Last thing I was saying was Malkin stepped up with 2 assists, but again, at age 35, still doing these types of things. It's just going to be in his game. He's not the type of guy to be smart. Although maybe I should talk because I just spoke for 5 solid minutes without anybody hearing me. As I was saying, difficult night in our house. We had some emotional meltdowns from the 2 boys, and it's got all of us feeling frazzled. And then, of course, what happened in this game, the Penguins have a defensive meltdown, and, well, it's just difficult to piece it all together. So sorry if it took me a little while to get on the air here and apparently get my voice on the air. But anyway, this is Matt Gajtka. This is Pittsburgh Postgame. There you see it at the bottom. Rangers 5, Penguins 3. Game 6 forced at PPG Paints on Friday. I was hoping I don't have to worry about this series over the weekend. Also, personal life. My parents and my brother and his wife are coming over, driving up from Pittsburgh to see our kids get baptized. So I was hoping to just have a nice, relaxing weekend and not worry about it too much. But maybe it'll be fun to watch the game with them. Anyway, one of the more frustrating losses in recent Penguins playoff vintage for sure, as I was saying, apparently talking to myself only. And not just the Crosby situation, but also the arbitrary penalties in the third period. The close calls with the extra attacker in the third. Rodriguez nearly had a puck fall to him at the doorstep. Also, Gensel and Rust buzzing around the net. Jeff Carter, all with opportunities. Kasperi Kapanen had a puck drift off his stick just as he was ready to pull the trigger before the empty net situation. So plenty of chances for the Penguins to tie this one up and shock the Rangers. I suppose you'd call it a bounce-back game for Shesterkin. I think it's more of a bounce-back game for the Rangers overall. I didn't think Igor was that great tonight. Goals 1 and 3, both didn't look so great, obviously. Goal number 1, bank it in from below the goal line. Hey, Jake Gensel's a smart player, but Shesterkin loses his net there. He still looks skittish to me in this series overall, even though games 1 and 2 he was quite good. Not quite good since then, but hey, for once the Rangers bailed him out. They scored 3 even-strength goals there in quick succession, all off in-zone play, and reminiscent of Game 2 when the Rangers made the Penguins run around in their own end for a long time and then finally cashed in a couple of times in that game. This time, they wore the Penguins out. Didn't have Crosby, did the Penguins at that point. But still, you'd like to think they have a little more poise in the defensive zone, especially with a 2-goal lead that they had at one point. And the Rangers just picked them apart. I give New York credit, and we knew they had some high-end talent. They have some finishers. But you hate to see, for instance, a guy like Jacob Trouba, after what he did to Crosby twice in this game, to just walk right around Jeff Carter at the point. Carter can't get beat there on the 3-2 goal I'm talking about. That's maybe the one that was the most preventable out of that sequence. But even still, the Penguins push back. They've been pesky and persistent throughout this playoff series. It's been great to watch. It's been a return to their resilient nature that we've seen when they're at their best under Mike Sullivan. And playing shorthanded tonight, still Ricard Raquel on the comeback trail. Brian Dumoulin still out. I'm not sure the Penguins are missing him that much, but for what it's worth, he has not even appeared on the ice since sitting out Game 2, I believe it was, about a week ago. So the Penguins on at full strength. Of course, nobody really is at this time of the year, and that's the goalie situation, too. We've got to talk about it. Louis Domingue, you'd like to get one of those 4 goals to not find the back of the twine. Just one of them, and the Penguins still have a chance. Heat will beat some short side for the winner on the power play in the third, so I think he'd probably say he'd like to at least get a glove on that. But some other ones that sneak through him, the Trouba backhand goal, maybe you'd prefer that he'd close the pads. Obviously, you'd prefer it, but I think you might expect it from a regular NHL caliber goaltender. So now the eyes turn to Tristan Jarry. Our eyes turn to Tristan Jarry, don't they? And he's been ramping up his workouts, I guess, Game 6. Just from the outside, I might term it a 50-50 shot for Jarry, but maybe you hang on to Domingue and say that Jarry is coming back from a broken foot, reportedly, and it might not be the easiest return there. But then again, maybe you return him at home and give him a chance, give him some leeway, right? And don't just lean on him in a Game 7, potentially. So I could see it both ways. Maybe I could see the Penguins being a little more aggressive with him, assuming that all is okay or good enough with that foot. Let's be honest. It's not going to be okay. It's not going to be great. But he's trying to get back into this thing and give him full credit, as you would expect. My name is Matt Gajtka. This is Pittsburgh Postgame. Remember to like and subscribe on Pittsburgh Sports Live. Kind of a therapy session for all of us tonight. Thank you, Christian Kosmak. By the way, you can chip in cash here. I just made 99 cents. Tip jar action. Let's see here. Matthew Boyle, Rangers fan in the chat. So very interesting that we'd see that. I wonder, let's see, the audio is back. Okay, good. Yeah, sorry about that, No Fate and Christian. Matthew Boyle asks, is Sid okay? I haven't seen anything from the post-game presser yet. I'm going to try to keep track of what's going on here and relay that on to you. But for right now, I'm not expecting too much to happen as far as disclosure, right? Particularly because the Penguins are not going to reveal too much because they're going to want to see maybe Jacob Trouba get suspended for that high hit, that elbow. It was a chicken wing. It was definitely obvious what Trouba was trying to do there. There's no need to go high in that situation. There just isn't. And he did it. He has a history of it. He was suspended for elbowing Mark Stone in the head, a drive-by situation in that game back in 2017, back when Stone was still a Senator. And also Trouba's had 2 or 3 close calls, depending on how you feel about that Jujar Kyra KO in a game against the Blackhawks earlier this season. But he does go high, and it's a known fact. So he does have that history, but I'm not entirely certain if 5 years ago counts as history to the NHL Department of Player Safety. So I'm hoping that it does. I feel like it should, especially considering he's been dancing on that line for a while now and hasn't been penalized. But we all know that it doesn't simply push it over the edge to have had a history. The hit, at least in the eyes of the NHL DOPS, has to be suspendable on its own merit. You can't just say, well, he's done it before, so we can assume that this was intentional. But once it does get past that stage, if they do determine that it is a suspendable hit, then the history does factor in. It can multiply from there. All right, Jenna Harner reporting on Sidney Crosby in the Mike Sullivan press conference. She says that he's being evaluated. No update as of right now. Just what I expected there. Interesting. Thanks, all of you, for hanging with me. I apologize for the lack of audio. That sucks. And, hey, like I said, not an easy night for us here. When you have kids, things get a little bit out of hand, and been trying to regather my composure throughout that third period. Not easy to do during a playoff game. One thing I will say, let's put it in perspective here. The Penguins, 4 days ago, were killing a penalty in a 3-3 or 4-4 game at home in Game 3, series tied 1-1, and hanging by a thread. Louis Domingue was flopping all over the place. You were thinking another goal is going to go in here. The Penguins kill it off. Domingue actually makes a great save on Artemi Panarin, and the Penguins survive that. Danton Heinen scores a little leaky one against Alexander Georgiev a few minutes later, and the Penguins win that game. They dominate Game 4. They have a lead in Game 5. So if you look at it that way, the Penguins were on the verge of going down in the series 4 days ago, and here they are, still with a chance to close it out on home ice. Still a pretty good result if you can take that big picture, and I think a lot of the players and coaches have to take that big picture after the emotions of today's game wash over them, and we're good to go. So that's one way I'm trying to look at it here, because I was thinking in the third period, 3-3 game, Rangers on the power play, where we see this, and of course the Rangers score tonight. But the Penguins had that cushion, and hey, I expected the Penguins to win this series in 6 or 7 if they were going to win it. And 5 would have been a bonus. Would have been lovely to take care of the Rangers, get some rest on some of these older legs. And, not to besmirch all the Penguins and say they're out of shape or anything, but I think they could use some rest more than most. But, hey, we're past that now. And now the eyes have to turn to Game 6. And I do wonder about Jari. And I guess if I had to bet right now, I would say he's back for Game 6. I didn't think he'd be back before the weekend, but he gets 2 more times on the ice in here before the Pens get back to game action, counting that morning skate on Friday. I think there's a pretty good chance that we do see Jari. And in fact, I might say 60-40. That's probably the way I would go with that. Christian Kosmak says Malkin has to take a Panarin or Fox to the box if he's going to take a stupid penalty. Fox to the box. That sounds catchy. Just can't get booted for 2. Malkin's worst moment, certainly. And it's funny how much better he looks when he has better line mates, Gensel and Rust alongside. But, yeah, Malkin, I don't want to say he's been a disappointment in this series. Yeah, I guess he has been a bit of a disappointment. In terms of production, of course, he scored the winner in Game 1. Feels weird to say that now, but The consistency just hasn't been there, but hey, he got all the ice time he could ever want, and all the support from his fellow line mates that he could ever want tonight with Crosby out. So I don't want to assume that Sid's out for Friday, but I would not be surprised if he's out for Friday, especially considering if it is a concussion situation. We've had Ricard Raquel out for, a week now, a week and a day since he was run by Ryan Lindgren, and that major penalty was rescinded to a minor. So the Rangers have gotten away with quite a bit in this series. We talked about Reeves in Game 1. Lindgren probably could have gotten at least a major there, if not a suspension. And we saw again tonight, especially at home, the Rangers didn't really do much in Pittsburgh. We'll see if they carry over the physical play to Pittsburgh because they seem to be emboldened by that crowd. It's a young team. It's predictable, right? I think they are a little more reliable or reliant on their home crowd and that energy that they provide than the Penguins might necessarily be. I think the Penguins played a pretty decent game today outside of that stretch in the late in the second period. And third period, I don't want to get on too much for odd man rushes against, but that 4-on-1, Malkin runs into Gensel. That's two guys who haven't played together very much. All right, Mike Sullivan, thanks, Walt. He's got the quotes for me here. He says Sidney Crosby has an upper body injury, and he made plenty clear his view on Jacob Trouba's hit, saying, "Did you see it?" Followed by, "You probably have the same opinion I do." Kind of wish Mike would just say, that's bullshit once in a while. I realize that he doesn't want to get fined or draw attention to himself. I guess he doesn't care about the fine so much, but I would like to see someone say something a little bit unhinged just to give us that emotional catharsis as fans. I think players at times can underestimate that, and coaches, that it's nice for the fans to hear that you're just as ticked off as we are about certain situations. And I hate to go back to the history of Crosby because, honestly, it's been a long time since he's had a concussion. It's been since, 2017 playoffs? 5 years, and nothing since then as far as I could tell, as far as I can remember. And as far as what we know about medicine and head injuries, if you let the concussion heal completely, then there shouldn't be an effect down the line. And that's what I've been telling people for the second half of Crosby's career, that there's no need to overly worry about him being more susceptible to concussions because the evidence just isn't there scientifically on that sort of thing. But, we're all thinking about it, right? And you just feel bad for the player because of what he's had to fight through in his career. And it's just Sid being hard-nosed in that situation against Trouba. Well, first of all, off the face-off in the first period. And then in the second period, valiantly leaning in to try to pry that puck loose, try to get the Penguins a second goal, and he gets run into. Should have gotten checked, don't get me wrong. He knows he's going to get hit there, but you shouldn't have to expect an elbow to the head. That's just where I'm coming from there. No Fate says Mario may speak out. He has in the past. And Mario took a beating for that. Remember that Islanders game in 2011? And he was called a hypocrite because the Penguins employed Matt Cook. I don't know if Mario's ever going to have the desire to get back out there and stick his neck back out, unless it's something that obviously he feels very strongly about, and this might be it. Who knows, right? Excuse me. Pollen season. Pollen all over my car today. I'm reminded of that. So if I'm sniffling, I'm not crying, although it came close earlier tonight. But I am a little bit struggling, a little bit, I don't want to say under the weather, but voice feels a little weird, and obviously head's a little foggy. I didn't have the audio on for the first 10 minutes of this broadcast. Goodness gracious. All right, we'll move on past that. Let's see what else we've got on Twitter from folks talking about tonight's game. RP Robert says, "I'm done with the NHL. The league is a joke. Player safety, my arse. Raquel and now Sid both targeted with headshots and nothing. By the way, no one has ever bought a ticket and said, I can't wait to watch Jacob Trouba. No one. But the game's greatest gets mugged. Unreal." I've said similar things in the past, and yet I come right back because I want to see the Penguins overcome, right? That's more of an interesting thing than me just turning off the TV and not caring anymore. Robert Fisher notes that Crosby was also boarded by Reeves in the first period. I was listening on the radio in the first period, and I got the Rangers feed on XM, so they didn't really mention that one. Anyway. Brian Andrews says, MSG raving about the Rangers play in the third period, no mention of Crosby being out. Well, you expect that from the home team broadcast. What I was disappointed in, and I can go on a little bit of a tangent here about ESPN. I've been overall a fan of ESPN's tone with their broadcasts. I feel like it's a plus for them to be back on ESPN, for the NHL to be back on ESPN. And I like a lot of the talent they have there. Steve Levy, Linda Cohn, John Butchergross. Obviously, they all care about hockey. I think PK Subban's been really great in a studio analysis role here in the playoffs. Bob Wischusen, Sean McDonough, real pros broadcasting. But play-by-play, I mean. But you know what? Ferraro and Wischusen, I feel like they just buried the lead tonight. And you saw the high hit. You saw the elbow on multiple replays they were showing. It's not like Ferraro, especially, who's the analyst, doesn't see that. He kept saying he felt like it was a lower body thing. And, of course, Sullivan says it's upper body in the post-game presser. So I like Ray Ferraro normally. I think he's maybe the best game analyst that we have in this sport. But he sounded like a fool tonight. I just didn't understand that. I realize it's easy for me to say sitting at home. He's in there in the cauldron between the benches, probably a tiny monitor, and probably seen a lot of tweets to him at intermission. I know he checks the tweets. He does often talk about that he wants to get the feedback and respond to it. So I'm just confused about what he was even looking at there. And ESPN, I think, has been a little disappointing in the first round of the playoffs overall. Leah Hextall, look, I love that they're diversifying what they're doing here in terms of their broadcast talent, but she's just not an NHL caliber broadcaster right now. They're forcing the issue there, shoehorning her in. I feel bad for her because she deserves the chance to make some mistakes with tens and hundreds of people watching, not thousands and millions of people watching. I feel like they could have gone to a more experienced hand there, and it's just rough seeing her struggle. That game against between Edmonton and L.A. last night, especially, just seemed like it was too big for her. And John Buchgras is not a play-by-play broadcaster. His call, maybe I'm not a broadcaster. His call, the Maple Leafs and the Lightning last night he just does not have the rhythms of a good play-by-play broadcaster. At one point he said the puck was going to clear the zone, and then he's like, no, it does not clear the zone. It's just call what's on the ice. Don't try to predict things. Don't try to squeeze in the slang that you think people want. Just call the game, say what's happening. You can have a personality, obviously. I'm a big Mike Lang fan, the most personality I've ever heard in a game broadcaster. So, but you know what Mike always did? He always nailed the game call. He always nailed the play-by-play, and that's the most important thing. And no offense to Bob Wischusen tonight. I think he's doing just fine, but Ferraro was weird. I think just totally misguided in his analysis this evening. Like I said, burying the lead. And they can definitely improve some other parts of their presentation. They're stretched thin. It's the first round of the playoffs. You need 4 broadcasting crews at least for this stage of the game. But Turner's handling a lot better, I think. And they're showing their recent bona fides in broadcasting, for instance, a sport like basketball. And they're showing that does translate over to hockey. But ESPN has not shown that so far. I'd like to see a little more respect paid to hockey, a little more attention to detail there. So that's my tangent tonight that's not related to the game at all. But I know a lot of you are frustrated by what was being said on the national broadcast. I'm living here in Michigan, so that's what I have. I don't have AT&T Sportsnet, and so I get a different perspective than a lot of you do. All right, other comments. Christian Kosmak says, this is where someone on the team should have stepped up, if not dropped the gloves, lay someone out in the neutral zone, have to send a message in that scenario. Elbows all game. Well, then do you want them to step up or do you want them to take a penalty? Because they're trying to come back and win the game. And so that's the challenge for me, Christian. You were just saying, well, Malkin's got to at least take someone with him. Well, he cross-checked the guy in the face. Maybe that's partially frustration for Crosby. So I don't know if that's the answer for the Penguins. You're trying to end the series, right? So it's difficult to ask them to enact retribution. That's not what's worked in the Sullivan era. I know that much. And we always complain about the Penguins getting tied up in vengeance narratives with Dan Bylsma in charge. And that's part of the reason Bylsma was fired. That's part of the reason that Sullivan was brought in, because he got this team to buy into just play. And so that's exactly what they're going to do, I think, in most cases. You saw it right to the very end. Teddy Bluger laughing in the face of, I think it was Lindgren, was it? I forget who it was behind the net. I enjoyed that because that shows that the Penguins still have some poise here, even if they are frustrated about the way things are going. Walt makes a good point about TNT. He says, I'll take ESPN over the TNT broadcasts featuring the same smooth brain leftovers from NBC's terrible hockey coverage. More Keith Jones and Edzo, kill me. And I would even say that, production-wise is what I'm talking about, but hey, I was also talking about broadcasters. And I don't think Kenny Albert has been that enthusiastic as he used to be. I realize now he's doing Rangers radio as well as national TV appearances, so those gigs are probably wearing him out a little bit, but I would like to see a lot more of Brendan Burke on the TNT, the big games, if you will. I agree with you on Edzo and Keith Jones. It's time to move on, huh? The studio presentation has been fresh and, for the most part, funny, a little inside jokey for my taste. But you're right about TNT. It's a little too much NBC Redux when it comes to the talent. All right. And No Fate says, Homer broadcasting is awful to watch. Even ours gets brutal at times. I've been increasingly disenchanted with Bob Aries' take on the Penguins. I just feel like he is a little shticky and doesn't notice the things that he should notice and really puts the kid gloves on when it comes to talking about the Penguins. I think Pittsburgh's a savvy enough sports market. I think we want our analysts to be critical, our hometown analysts to be critical when it's merited. So that's where I'll leave that. Serdar Koya says, a lot of pressure on the Penguins at home in Game 6. The last one is the hardest to get. The Penguins have to hold on to a lead. Yeah, tonight they were looking solid, right? And who knows how much the Crosby situation cost them in terms of attrition. Of course, Sid takes up a lot of real estate out there, not just the great plays that he makes, but a lot of minutes. And they were missing him in the second half of the game. I still think the Penguins played admirably, but that's going to catch up to you over the long haul. Hopefully it's not a long haul without Sid. Another comment here, I don't even know what that says. Theo Boro FRD. Our team just completely collapsed for 5 minutes, and it cost the game. Yeah, it did. And I'm not saying the Penguins played great tonight. That was their worst game, or their worst stretch of play since maybe even the, well, I want to say that because they were terrible in the second period of Game 3. But I was going to say first period of Game 1, too. They were outclassed for a while. It's been a while, though. It's been 2.5 games or so since they had been. And overall, they've been the better team in the series. They deserve to lead 3-2, and they deserve to have this chance to close it out on home ice on Friday night. So looking forward to seeing how they respond. Matt Loves the Most High has got a comment. He says, do you see the blue line remaining the same going into the next game? Well, I don't think Dumoulin's coming back, and there's really not that much in terms of options. I think it's got to still be Friedman and Ruedel. Pairings, maybe. I don't know. I'll have to go back and look at those goals and see who was on the ice and what happened there. I remember Marino and Pettersson didn't look very good on the tying goal for the Rangers. They were looking panicked, honestly, and chasing things around. And so a rare, tough moment for them because otherwise they've been really good in this series. They've been the Penguins' best defensive pairing when you look at expected goal share and some of the advanced numbers that are out there. Just in terms of plus-minus tonight, only one defenseman, Chad Ruedel, was a minus. So that's interesting. I wouldn't have thought that. But anyway, the defense was, I think, let down by the forwards at times with coverage mistakes. Adam Fox allowed to walk right into the dot and shoot that puck that beats Domingue. A screen in front, so maybe you put that on the defenseman. But I'm not sure I'd put it on the D as much. Now, Matheson and Letang haven't looked terribly comfortable together, but this might have been their most comfortable game that they've played. Actually, when you look at it, they've had some more experience playing together since Dumoulin went out 3 games ago, and so I don't expect any changes on the blue line. Maybe Raquel comes back for the Penguins. Maybe Sid comes back. Of course, he hasn't missed a full game, but there's always that chance. And there is that question there from Theo Burrow saying, what will happen to Sid? Well, that's anybody's guess, right? We are thinking concussion, and the way Mike Sullivan reacted, he's pretty pissed about it, and he's got reason to be. N7, the Pens try to protect leads in every game this series, and the Rangers have come back each time. The Pens can't sit back. Well, not Game 4, obviously. They didn't cough up the lead. In fact, the Rangers were blown away in Game 4. I don't know if they were terribly passive in this one. I think the game was just a quiet game for the most part, and I think the Penguins up 2-0 are okay with that. It was just once the Rangers got one, the Penguins couldn't stem that tide, and it was tough to not have that first line to put back out there. So I don't know if I'd put this one on sitting back necessarily. They got buried after the first goal went in for the Rangers, but even so, they had a pushback. So a little different from Game 3, certainly, when they obviously were backpedaling the entire second period, and it looked awful, and they were fortunate to even get out of that period with a tie score. Walt says, this was a game where the Pens beat the Pens. They kind of fell in some bad habits and smelled their farts a little too much. That's one of your favorite phrases, isn't it, Walt? I suspect they'll right the ship. Maybe they did get a little comfortable, but I kind of thought in this game, maybe it's time for one of those typical grinded-out playoff games. For a while, it was a very buttoned-down affair, and that was favoring the Penguins. And I thought to myself when it was 2-0, would it be too much to ask for a nice shutout to close out the series? I guess it was way too much to ask because the Rangers put 5 on the board, 4 past Domingue. And I hope this does remind folks that the Penguins are in desperate straits in goaltending right now. Domingue's doing the best he can, but as soon as Jari is remotely ready to go, I think he's got to go back out there. And like I said, especially going into a Game 6 where you have still some cushion, I would rather put Jari out there. If you're going to put him back out there, and it's the same either way health-wise, don't wait until Game 7. Say, good job well done, pat him on the back to Louis Domingue, and then go back to your guy that was challenging for the Vezina for about 60 games this season before the Penguins fell off and he got hurt. So that's the way I would go with that. With regards to Jari, but who knows if he's going to be actually ready to go. So that's going to be the one big question here. This is Pittsburgh Postgame on Pittsburgh Sports Live. If you're joining us late, if you joined us after the first 10 minutes, you didn't miss much. My audio was not working, so I've had some issues with the stream. Sometimes with the actual bandwidth, but this time I think this was my fault. In fact, I'm pretty sure it was on me. So I've tried to repeat everything that I said in the first, maybe more like 7 or 8 minutes as we get past the half-hour mark of the broadcast. I'm going to give you guys some bonus time here. Matt says, do you see Boilo getting into the lineup, maybe on the bottom pairing? No, I don't think so. He hasn't played at all for the Penguins, and he's been hurt the second half of the season. He's the player the Penguins acquired from the Jets for, I think, a draft pick. So I just don't see it. I don't feel like... I think Friedman's been good. I think Ruido's been fine. I don't have any issues with the defenseman outside of a couple of plays tonight. And overall, I think they've done a nice job against a Rangers team that's tough to contain. Let's give the Rangers their due in the fact that this is a difficult opponent. They gained confidence throughout the season. They know how to score. They pumped in more than 3 goals per game this year. They've scored more than 3.5 goals per game in this series. So it's not like the Pens are playing awesome defensively, but they're doing enough. And sometimes you play a team that's going to play an open game like the Rangers, and you're not going to be able to control it totally. And you just have to hope that your players come up with the big plays and when things get a little bit ragged and the game opens up. Today, the Rangers made more of those plays. That's just how it went. Players are not interchangeable, says Keith Thomas. Malkin is far different from Crosby in style, speed, reaction, anticipation, etc. It changes the dynamic massively when your A1 player goes out, and especially when it's Sid. I'll add that, Keith. And you saw that when Malkin ran into Gensel. They are not used to playing together very much. It's been a while since they were paired up. It was been since late in the 2019-20 season, right before COVID, before Sid came back from, I believe it was a groin injury. Yeah, core muscle surgery or something like that. Gensel and Malkin looked good back then, but it's been forever since they played together. Actually, Gensel went out with an injury in 2019-20, so it was even before that. It was like the first half of that season. So we're going on 3 years since they've played together with any regularity. Malkin and Rust have more familiarity, so at least the Pens have that if it's got to be Malkin as your top center on Friday night. All right, that's about all I got for you. N7 notes there were 2 Rangers in position, and Trouba deliberately ran out of position to target Sid. Yeah, you knew what he was doing. You could see it. And as Sullivan said, you saw the hit. We all saw the hit, and we probably have the same opinion that he does, that it was a garbage hit. And I hope and pray that Department of Player Safety feels the same way. All right, thanks, folks, for watching. Sorry for the technical issues. Looks like the bandwidth is dropping on me again. It happens like that late at night. Don't they know I'm trying to stream Pittsburgh Postgame and talk to you folks and have a little therapy session with you? All right, Friday night coming up. I'll be with you again. Can the Pens close the series, or will it go to 7? I think you know which outcome I'm rooting for. I know which outcome that you're rooting for. Remember to like and subscribe. Pittsburgh Sports Live. Plenty of Penguins coverage, these post games, and also we've got Steelers, we've got Pirates, we've got Riverhounds even, and we've got all the local colleges of note as well. Talk to you next time on Pittsburgh Postgame. Bye-bye.